So, Cookie, welcome to the show. Introduce yourself to everybody.
My name is Cookie Tanney, and I am the owner of the Safe Gal and Kaynine Safe Company.
Very cool. So, what got you started in the safe industry?
Well, in college, I was a metal art major, and I grew up in a machine shop. So, learning how to ride a bike in a machine shop and things like that is not the norm. But I've always been very interested in metal. Um,
Very cool.
and yeah, I mean, it's pretty random. But when I had moved back from college, I was working in my dad's machine shop, and he had made safes from time to time, and, they just were not up to par, I
Hmm.
guess you could say. And so I kinda said, "Well, what if I start making safes?" And we made one for a charity, um, and I made it hot pink, and I had rhinestone the dial, and, and it ended up selling, for more than it was worth, which was great for the charity, and then a light kinda went off, and I was like, "Hey," like, just because it's a safe doesn't mean it has to be hunter green or, you know,
Oh, yeah,
necessarily
no.
hidden.
Uh huh.
So, that's kinda where I started the journey, and I had asked
That's
my
very
dad,
cool.
"What do you think if I make safes?" And he said, "Well, I don't know why you would want to, but if you want to, go for it." So, there I went.
Very cool. I like that, because I think every safe I've ever seen has been black, gray, or hunter green. So, yeah, that's
Right.
awesome that you were like, hey, let's just do something different.
Yeah. I mean, the people were we when we donate things like that, it's to bring money into the charity, and my immediate thought was, well, you've donated this big safe and it was for a quarter of its cost. Who's it helping? And then we got to deliver it, and these things are heavy, so it just wasn't
Hmm.
making sense. Um, so in a lot of ways, I was just like, this can be so improved upon. It's just a metal box, but like we can totally make it better. Um, and then everyone thought I was crazy, but here I am. So.
Very cool. So, what has happened since that first safe that you made to now? Kind of bring us up into to what has happened in your world.
So once knew I kind of wanted to do this, I knew immediately like I need to know everything about the safes. I need to know how they're drilled. I need to know how the locking mechanisms work. You know what the steel thickness is. How are we fire lighting? Because I knew it was going to be questioned.
Hmm.
And I have been questioned. Immensely over the years. Like as if you just see me and you think I don't know anything about it, which is fine. I enjoy that kind of. Um, but my first show was the Tulare Farm Show, which is here in California, and I was on the dirt floor. Half the safes had stickers because I hadn't got them quite finished, and, um, I had a pretty good, um the show went pretty well for, scrambling together. It took me about a year to kind of, like, get a website, get, like, all the things you need to start the business actually since do all the legal things and then it took me about 5 years to kind of really get rolling
Hmm.
um where I had about like 90% of my business um for the last 10 years I guess you could say would be referrals,
Hmm.
and I think that's great. It's my customers really like the end product, so they tell their friends, and word of mouth is great. I tried to branch out, beyond that, but it's a hard industry. There's a lot of
Yeah.
saturation.
Yeah, because it seems like, it's such an important thing and people are gonna wanna make sure that, like you said, that the product is really good and breaking into the industry is that takes a lot of guts to do something like that, does it? Because like, I'm an entrepreneur as well, like, I get it. For the entrepreneurs who are listening, what was it like stepping out from the business side of this and saying, "This is what I wanna do, and I'm going to change my corner of the industry?"
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of. I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily backlash, but like at shows, there's a lot of like putting me down. Like I don't know what
Mhm.
I'm talking about, or you already have a safe at home and it's this great, or it's you know, is and there's really no training to get into this industry because, like, who could tell me how to do it better or different? There's not, there's like really only 5 companies in the United States that are truly American made,
Mhm.
and I can't reach out to a competitor and ask, "How do I outsell you?"
Right.
But
Yeah, that probably wouldn't go well. Right.
no. But, I mean, it's definitely scary because there's no a lot in most businesses, there's no, like, rule book, right? And you
Right.
gotta figure it
Right.
out on your own to a certain degree. Um, but selling something American made for a price when you're dealing with a lot of things that are not American made that are, quarter of the price is difficult because you're consistently having to explain why. And then you
Mhm.
have the great customers who already did the research and they know why. You can
Right.
see the differences. Um,
Right.
but I mean, there's been very many. I've been doing this for what, almost 13, 14 years. And I I still go, I'll show up to change a lockout on someone's safe and the guy will answer the door and he'll be like, "Are you sure you know what you're doing?" Like, like,
Sure.
I I guess we'll find out, you know?
Right. And yeah, I've I've only known you for a few minutes here, and I think that is like, yeah, I've really I gotta, show this guy that he's wrong here. So that's awesome. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, you talked about, the safe industry and the kind of being a saturated market. Tell me the truth here. Are the $30 safes on Amazon actually going to work?
I mean, they'll work for I don't know, a couple of times, I mean, is the best way to put it, right? I've seen those kind of safes where the batteries are located inside of the safe. So, what you have to pry it open when they die. I mean, a
Yeah,
lot of
that
them will
seems
come
like a
with
bad idea.
right, or they come with extra keys. And I think a lot of people think, "Ooh, an extra key, it's a backup. I feel safe." Well, I mean, to be honest, a lot of people lose that key. And then what? You know? I mean, that's majority of the time they lose the key. But, no, they don't work. You can just pick it up and also run off with it. Look, I'd rather you have your gun in anything than nothing, in something than nothing.
Sure. Right.
But realistically, if you've got it in your nightstand, someone else, can go and find it in your nightstand, pop it open with a screwdriver, and here we are.
Right.
Or just take the whole thing.
Yeah.
I do not recommend them, but again, something's
Sure.
better
I
than
mean,
nothing.
right. I get that. And yeah, like having the batteries on the inside, that doesn't seem like a good idea.
No.
Or, if the like the lever on the front is made out of plastic, that sort of stuff. That just doesn't evoke a lot of confidence. You need confidence in a safe, right?
Right, absolutely. And, like, the ones that will come, technology is cool, but,
Hmm.
like, fingerprints, I I don't love those. I use them, certain brands, but, on these ones where you're not spending a lot of money, and it does have the fingerprint option. Think about, like, when the phones first came out,
Hmm.
did it work all the time? Not like, half the time it didn't. So, in an emergency, what if it's not working? You're
Hmm.
gonna want something that's obviously more reliable. Or in that emergency, your battery died and you don't know where your extra key is. You know?
Right.
So
Yeah. Right. And I feel like there's a lot of times in this industry, and this is just from my outsider point of view, like if it's not broken, don't fix it, right? Like safes have
yes.
been around forever and people are trying to put like the fingerprint things on it or like a different scanner, RFID, and that requires power and all that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
Those are cool, but that doesn't necessarily make you any safer, right?
Absolutely. I use that, like, term all the time when I'm trying to explain to people about the locks I like to use. I
Hmm.
like to use, like, it's called a D drive lock. And it has a mechanical feature to it. So you're kind of controlling it by when you enter your number, you're spinning the dial, and that's retracting your lock. It kind of takes out the solenoid,
Mm.
part of a lock where you just enter your code and it goes. Zzz. Um, but back to your point, if it's not broke, don't fix it. We're at the end of the day, we're making a metal box, so
Hmm.
um, we can make it look good. We can change the interior to fit you, but we don't need to add you know, all of these different things that you can control from your phone.
Hmm.
Sometimes they came out with a lock. Now, I may be incorrect because they're always working on stuff, but there was a lock that was like Bluetooth, and I thought,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I have
it's
that
just
same
not.
I'm right there with you, like, especially, like, a lock on a house, if it's got Bluetooth or there's a way that somebody can open that door without being in front of it, that makes me really, really nervous.
Me as well. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So
Yeah,
I think you should just go back to the basics, you know? And also a
right.
lot of people don't like, if you still want the mechanical dial, I install them, you know?
Mhm,
As, people get older, it's harder to see. It's even harder for me to see, and
mhm,
if you're just off, you got it a bit. You gotta turn it all the way again. I get
mhm.
frustrated. Um,
Sure.
so there's a way to have, like, a newer age with a battery,
Mhm.
like and, still have the same security and kinda keep out all of the as much electrical components as possible.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah,
where I
those
like
are
to what I like to put on my safes. Yeah.
yeah, and that makes complete sense. Um, so for people who are looking to buy a safe, what are like the real specs that we need to be looking for? What is it that really matters? We can get past the flashy stuff, but what is it that truly matters if you are wanting to buy a safe?
100% for me is the steel thickness.
Mhm.
If you start doing your research and you're looking at all these websites and they don't list the steel thickness loud and proud, that should maybe alarm you. Or if
Okay.
it's very small at the bottom, your steel thickness is your number one barrier between
Mhm.
someone getting into your safe and not. Um, a lot of times they're not going to list whether they have internal relockers or not, or they will, but, like, really just do your research and number 1, get the I think a quarter-inch seal is nice. You can go
Okay.
thicker than that, it tends to get very, more and more expensive,
Mhm.
but a lot of these safes, you know, I'll tell you a little secret, but, like, on the doors, if it says it has a 3-inch door, it's not a 3-inch solid door. It is
Mhm.
a piece of metal with tubing on it.
Mhm.
And my tubing is inset, so you can see the metal and then the tubing. You could pull the tubing all the way out to the end, and sure, that door looks like it's 3 inches thick, but it's only as thick as your front plate, and the front
Gotcha.
plate may
Okay.
be like a 12 gauge or a 16 gauge, like very thin.
Mhm.
So, you kinda gotta, I don't know, look for the loopholes that are
Sure.
out there that people take to make you feel like you're getting a better product. And the easy way to look at it is like, okay, if you're not good at the steel thickness is how much does it weigh?
Mhm.
If you go look at one of mine in a 24, let's say 30, 60, and it weighs, I'm not, I think it's like 600, but then you see the
Mhm.
same one, same size, different company, and it weighs 250. Well, and then you're
Yeah,
gonna,
that's a red flag
you
then,
know,
isn't it?
yeah. So I think if you
Okay.
start there, you're in pretty good shape.
Okay. That's good. And so what about like fireproofing and things like that? I don't even know. Is there a standard for that? How is that even measured?
Yes. So there is a UL rating, and
Mhm.
some companies get them, some don't. You can the ratings kind of range all over the place, So um for mine, I since we start with the thicker steel, you're already ahead of the game there. My fire lining process is not one that's used very often anymore because it's expensive, like to build.
Mm.
But it's a quarter-inch body, top, bottom, and door, and then you have a 3/16 body, top, bottom, and then the fireboard is layered 1 or 2 for 1 or 2 hours, and then it's all
Mm.
welded and sealed. So now you have a
Gotcha.
double walled safe with the fireboard in between. Then there's fireboard on the door. Um,
Got it.
that's not, when the safes are mass produced, they're generally just taking fireboard and wrapping it with some fabric and then putting it on the walls. So,
Got it.
and then the degree of the temperature, you can look
Mhm.
for that. Well, if it if it says it's gonna last 3 hours, in fine print, it'll say, like, up to 1,200 degrees.
Right. Yeah,
Well,
that does affect the time, doesn't it?
have you ever, heard of a fire that's, been going on for 3 hours
Right.
and is only at 1,200 degrees?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good note. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, that is
Yeah,
yeah, that changes a lot of things.
it does. I think once people start to look and find all of the, like, information that's on there, you'll start noticing things in different places, and it kind of, like, will all kinda make more sense. But it kinda
Gotcha.
just goes back to what I think most important about a safe and its fire rating is the steel thickness. Mm.
So, what are some of the common mistakes that people make when they're buying their first safe?
Mistakes I think would be more like going for the more digital
Mhm.
one or the fancy new model, that doesn't always end up well, going well. I always say, like, if someone comes to me and, like, they're not at a place in their life where, like, buying maybe one of mine is out of their price range, and it's so
Mhm.
they need something in the meantime. I'm like, "Absolutely." You can even send me whatever brand you're looking at, and I'll tell you, "Yeah, this is good. No, that's a bad lock. Maybe go for this one." I'll help you out. I want you to, at the end of the day, get something, to put your stuff in because
Mhm.
I'm more worried about people's items than a sale, you know? Um,
Gotcha.
but an a big mistake would be whatever you get, if it's not heavy, that people don't bolt them down, and
Mm,
then they
okay.
just steal the whole safe, and you've packed it all up for 'em. And, you
Right.
know?
You just given them a box to carry it out in. That's what
Yeah,
you've done. Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
so if
'cause
you put it in your garage, bolt it down, like, even in your
got it.
house,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of people think if I put it in the safe, it's safe in the safe. Sorry to say that so
Yeah,
often. But and that's true. Like it is there, but you don't think about, oh, wait a minute, two guys could pick this up and carry it out. Or,
right,
somebody could back up their truck, put a rope around it and pull it out like they're stealing an ATM if it's located in your
for
garage.
sure.
So
Mhm.
how do I bolt down a safe? Let's say maybe it's in a master bedroom closet. What would I need to do to make sure that it's gonna stay put?
So, every safe should come with some type of anchor holes, and
Mhm,
then, they'll come you're gonna wanna go into the foundation. Now, if you're, like, somewhere with a subfloor or a lot of people rent and they're, like, scared to bolt things down. I mean, you kinda just gotta weigh
mhm.
the pros and cons of that. Like, if you got a lot of stuff in there, I would bolt it down and kind of figure out what we're gonna do after later. Because I mean, the holes are not huge. If you're going into
Mhm.
carpet, you probably wouldn't see it after you pulled it out. Um, but we can make like special accommodations where if I'm putting it in a closet with a raised, you know how the closets will have like the pedestal on the bottom,
Yep,
and we're putting
mhm,
it in a cabinet. We'll put holes in the back, and then we'll go through some 2x4s in the wall.
mhm.
Um, so we could add holes anywhere, but, if you're
Okay.
just buying a standard safe, make sure it has holes, but I honestly haven't seen one that is of a decent size that didn't come with regular anchor holes.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
If I was worried about somebody running off with my safe, could I put like an Apple AirTag in it? Would that signal come through the steel? That's something I haven't really thought about until right now.
Yes, definitely. And then there's also a company called Safe Tech, and
Mhm,
um, they've been around for quite some time. There used to be a different one that was like a tracker, but it did more of alarming you if there was heat or
mhm.
moisture. But the Safe Tech one is a tracker and it has an app on your phone, and it will tell you if there's movement. So if someone's picked up your safe and the thing's bouncing around, then you're gonna get a text. So I mean, that's
Gotcha.
also a good. I didn't even think of that. That's also a good thing if you can't bolt it down. Put something like that in there.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. All right. So, if I can't bolt this thing down and like I just have like one of the smaller safes, that sort of thing. Maybe I am renting that sort of thing. Is there anything else I can do besides putting a tracker in it, or is it pretty much just I got to rely on the weight of the safe itself?
You pretty much need to rely on the weight or if you have an ability to hide it.
True.
Some like
True.
apartments have the pull down things or an attic
Hmm.
or something like that. Um, if you can hide it well enough, people are going to look in your bedroom. They're going to go to your garage.
Hmm.
They're going to go to your bedroom first. So
Right.
maybe find an alternative place. Um, if you start looking around, there's lots of kind of places you could hide things that maybe they're not going to go to first. It depends how much time someone has too, if they've broken in. A lot of times it's smash and grab kind of thing, so they're in, they're out,
Hmm.
So I think the best bet would be to hide it if you can't bolt it down, and then most definitely the weight.
Yeah, okay.
You want
That's
something that,
awesome.
like, you and your friend can't go you and your friend can load it up at the store, me and my friend can load it up at your house,
Got
you
it.
know?
Yeah, alright.
If
Yeah, definitely, I'm gonna need somebody to help me get this up the stairs kind of situation.
Yes.
Okay, so I know that there most likely is a difference between a safe that is rated for, like, holding jewelry or valuables and one that holds firearms. Can you kinda walk us through that?
Well, in the kind of the big jump is when you get into jewelry. So,
Mhm.
the jewelry stores have to have I should have printed the all of the ratings so I could go over them with you. But for a jewelry store to be insured, they have to have a, TR I think it's on the top of my head, but one of the highest ones, and then basically it
Mhm.
just means they need a 1-inch thick door. I think it's a 1-inch thick body, and then, a UL rated lock. It's, but a lot of, um, insurance require with different things, and some insurances maybe won't even add the safe to it, you just add the contents. When I was, started Kaynine and Kodiak back in the day, um, it was a gun safe because it had a rifle rack, right?
Mhm.
A safe is just a safe. So if I don't put a rifle rack in it and I put jewelry shelves or I put a jewelry armoire in it, it's still the same quarter-inch thick, 1 hour rated safe. It's just now for a different use. Um, you I think a majority of the safes, unless they're small, maybe they'll come with straight shelves. They're gonna come with a rifle rack.
Mhm.
There isn't very many companies that are not custom that will, are selling a safe that isn't meant for a gun. But really, it's meant for anything. It's meant for coins. It's
Sure.
meant for
Right.
money.
Yeah.
Heirlooms, pictures. Uh,
I think a lot of people just assume that if they see a safe that that means, "Oh, there's something, like, super dangerous in it," but it could really be just for, like, your family keepsakes and things like that, right?
yeah, 100%. Yeah, I have a whole, a safe full of like picture albums. And maybe
Mhm.
I have a problem, but in the the industry I'm in, you kind of like see, like, you start to take, things mean more to me, I guess, Like,
Mhm.
if I don't want it taken, I'm putting it in the safe, and then, my husband's like, "Do we need to, like, literally have all these baby spoons and things in the safe?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I I would miss them," or
Right.
I may have gone overboard, though. Um,
Gotcha.
but yeah, when I started the Safe Gal, I kinda wanted to more people to understand that,
Mhm.
because I'd be talking to the husband, and he'd say, "Well, I wanna get her safe because I want her jewelry out of my safe," you know? And I'm like, "Okay, that makes sense." But then you would talk to the wife alone, she'd be like, "Well, I don't have any guns." And it's like, "So? That means more room for your jewelry or your
Right.
purses or, you know? Let's make it to fit you and not so we can have a his and hers."
So you have mentioned, canine safes and then also the Safe Gal. Tell us about those.
Canine safes, like, in the beginning, I was just doing branding more for gun safes.
Mhm.
And that's, my goal was always to kind of, make them for jewelry. It took quite some time to get people to believe in kind of my vision of doing these armoires inside and installing watch winders. Um, not, the people weren't taking me seriously, I guess. And then I finally
Mhm.
found someone who had like an artistic bone in his body and was really great at woodworking. So I was able to start the Safe Gal and, market more towards women or just anybody who doesn't have a gun. If you don't like guns, cool. You don't need to like guns. You know, but if you're a coin
Mhm.
collector, I can make it to fit your coins. If you're, a watch collector, we can put watch winders in it. We can anything you want, we got it.
So, Cookie, if I am looking to get a safe, I want to balance, accessibility with security. If I have a firearm safe that I want to be able to get to quickly, what's the balance that I'm looking for? What is it that I need to do?
So, a lot of my customers, if you're able to do it, I recommend putting something maybe smaller in your bedroom,
Mhm.
that we can kind of hide away in it, whether you're you're wanting to your shotgun is the go-to or a handgun. We know we're gonna base the size of it on that. Um, accessibility-wise, the lock I always recommend is easy to get into and it's quick. Um, and then maybe do a safe somewhere else that has a majority of your, you know,
Mhm.
other items, your jewelry, your other guns, your ammo, collectibles. If you're looking for something that, is gonna be a quick turnaround. That's
Mhm.
kinda what let's do a little something hidden. I've made it safes to go under I made one that went under a bed and the whole thing pulled out. We've done them in, armoires and hidden in the closet. You can do it in between your studs.
Mhm.
There's lots of options. So, like, you need to think usually people come to me like, "This is my plan of attack.
Mhm.
Where can I put a safe?" And then I'll be like, "Okay, well, here's is what I think we should do." And then we'll build your big, beautiful safe, with all of the gadgets and gizmos, and that will go elsewhere.
Got it. So it's really just a good idea to have something that would, just cover your emergency access and then have another one that covers everything else, right?
Right. Yeah, because most people don't have the space to,
Mhm.
have a 4-foot wide safe in their closet. Or
Sure.
if you do have a two-story house, you're not gonna want to put a 1,000-pound safe up there,
Right.
because we don't want to come down to the living room, you know? So, it's like the ease of access for you is what we want, and then we also don't want, um you go into the garage every day to get your jewelry, so if you think about it
Mhm.
like that, like, you want it
Sure.
somewhere inside, you just won't get it, and it
Mhm.
kinda I tell people the same thing about the mechanical dials, like, if I had to get into my safe every day with a mechanical dial, I probably wouldn't, like, get anything out, I would just be like, "Forget it," you
Right,
know?
sure. Okay.
Because 'Cause I'm always
Right.
late, and I'm like, if I gotta spin it, like, 28 times, I'm just like, "I don't need it," you know?
Right.
So, if you're not going to the
Got it.
mechanical dial, don't get one of those.
So, where are some good places in the average house that you can hide a safe? You've talked about that a lot, which I appreciate. So, where are some good places that I can hide a safe in my house?
Contrary to like I said earlier, they're gonna run to your master first.
Mhm.
Okay, fine. If we built it correctly, we're gonna be in good shape. We're gonna have it
Mhm.
bolted down. We've got internal relocker where if you knock off that dial, it's just gonna pop. It's not gonna open.
Mhm.
So they're gonna need days to get one of mine out if we've secured it properly. So
Gotcha.
we can use the master. Um, we could, like I said, under the bed. I do love an in the wall safe
Mhm.
because you can hang a picture over it. Um, and that's good for just like passports, things like that. Um, but if it has to be seen, because some of us don't have the luxury, and again, that's why I started making them better looking. Because I had
Mhm.
a wife say, like, if he can get it, if you can match my like wall color, I was like, oh, I'll
Mm.
match your wall color,
That's
you know.
cool.
And the husband was happy, and it was like, you know, um, but it wasn't an eyesore because a lot of people
Mhm.
also don't want a big old hunter green safe in their living room.
So talk to me about the artistic side of this, because that's something that is new to me and obviously that you've perfected. What kind of goes into making a safe look like it really truly belongs in a space?
For my customers that are here, fortunately, like, I'll go to their house, and I always go do all the
Mhm.
measurements and stuff myself, and then I kinda get a vibe of, like, where are we going, are we Western? Are we modern? Are we and a lot of times people just come to me and tell me what they want. Maybe it's
Mhm.
totally off the wall and they want, like, Miami Dolphins colors. Okay. I mean,
Sure.
whatever. Yeah, I don't really care. Um, and then or if they just give me like a say I want turquoise. I'm like, okay, hey, I have these different fabrics that we can put in here. And then some
Mhm.
people are just simple. And they're like, it's gonna be hidden. I want it black. I want it gray. And I'm like, I always joke and say I'm gonna sneak some like leopard in there or something. I, I
S
haven't done it yet.
See, now my wife would like that. She likes leopard print. She likes animal print. She would love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, as we wrap up here, what is the one question that you wish people would ask when they are making an investment in a safe? What is one thing that you're like, man, I just wish more people knew this? and how to answer that.
I think it truly just comes full circle about knowing your steel thicknesses and recognizing the weight. Because I think if a lot of people more people put 2 and 2 together when you're looking at one of my safes and now my safes are also very, refined and in their finishes. It could be a fabulous safe and, just look, um,
Look kind
I
of
don't know.
boring.
Yeah, yeah, and that's cool, I love it, as long as it weighs the same, you know?
Right.
But I think
Hmm.
the biggest misconception and the thing that makes it actually upsets me about people investing their money is they feel like they're getting this amazing safe that's gonna last 3 hours and it's waterproof, I've seen on some people's website. There's no safe that's waterproof, it's not
Hmm.
true, okay? There's a fire seal that expands with heat and that should keep out water, but in a flood, it's not gonna be waterproof. So, it that those kind of things bother me, and I just at the end of the day, if you get something with some good weight to it, I think you're way ahead of the game.
One more question here, and I know that you have the privacy of your clients to consider here, but what's your favorite project that you've ever done for somebody? What's one that you're just really super proud of?
I did once build one that went in the back of a Hummer, and
That's awesome.
and she was my favorite customer and still is till the end of time because she wanted to be able to put whatever she was putting in it. She needed to get into it fast. And by the time I was done building it, we had taken out the third row and we had to
Mhm.
load it with a forklift because it was so
Mhm.
heavy. And the Hummer was like, "Eek." But off she
Wow,
went.
okay. Very cool.
Yeah. So that
S
actually, yeah, that was my
Yeah, so
favorite.
you just put one you just have a safe rolling around in a Hummer like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It filled up the whole back, and we bolted it to the frame, and it was just I just never forget her personally. She was a great gal, and, I don't she was, pretty cool, obviously, to need
Oh,
a big
yeah.
old safe in the back of her Hummer, so
Right, yeah, if you have a Hummer and you need a safe in it, like, you're pretty you're just living life. That is that is awesome.
absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I loved her.
So, Cookie, if people wanna know more about you and all that you're doing, where can they find you online?
So you can go to safegal.com, caninesafes.com, and those will just have, like our standard sizes. And I
Mhm.
always tell everybody, I mean, the best bet is to just reach out, through the website or whatever, and then I'll talk to you personally. And if anybody again has any questions about anything, I'm more than happy to steer anybody in whatever direction they need to go to get something that suits them. And then we have the social medias, and they're all just at the Safe Gal or at Kaynine Safes, and, you get to see some more of the custom ones there,
Mhm.
but, as you mentioned, I don't get to post everything because
Right.
I have
Yeah,
to
yeah,
keep
you have
some
to
privacy,
mhm, mhm.
so, but there are some different ideas on there and a lot of the safes, before they leave the shop, will
Well, Cookie, I appreciate your time, so much. I have learned a lot from you today. Best of luck in the future.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Have a great day.